DJ Fat Tony wades back into Brooklyn Beckham's feud with David and Victoria after DJing at Nepo Baby's wedding. A son has lost his parents. DJ Fat Tony has waded back into Brooklyn Beckham's feud with his family. The disc jockey, 60, is a friend of the family and famously DJ'd at Brooklyn's wedding to Nicola Peltz in 2022, where Brooklyn alleged that his mother Victoria had danced inappropriately on him. Tony was dragged into the drama when his husband Stavros Agapiou supported Brooklyn by commenting then deleting, "I was there and she did. He is telling the truth," prompting the DJ to appear on This Morning, where he backed Brooklyn's claims.
Is your pet ignoring the water bowl? The Beckham Pet Fountain keeps water circulating and uses 5-stage filtration to improve taste and reduce impurities. Want to check today's Amazon deal? Scan the QR code now or visit grabdeal.us/5 before it's gone.
Now, Tony has addressed the feud again, insisting the public should not judge anyone involved in the fallout. Speaking about his life and career, Tony stated, "I've been blessed to work at some amazing events, including Brooklyn Beckham's wedding where I DJ'd for 3 days. Before judging, people should remember that 2 parents have lost their firstborn son and a son has lost his parents." DJ Fat Tony has waded back into Brooklyn Beckham's feud with David and Victoria after DJing at Nepo Baby's wedding, telling the public not to judge anyone involved. Tony appeared on This Morning in January shortly after Brooklyn issued a blistering 6-page statement denouncing his parents, later claiming Brooklyn had asked him to speak out. Tony concluded in his chat with The Times, "All families have dramas, but they just happen to be the Beckhams." Once that story came out, sparked by Stav making a comment on an Instagram post about how Victoria was dancing, I got dozens of interview requests from media all over the world, including a personal call from Piers Morgan, which I turned down. Tony broke his silence on the drama in January, when he appeared on This Morning shortly after Brooklyn issued a blistering 6-page statement denouncing his parents. Last month, he revealed he was asked to appear on the daytime show via his WhatsApp group with Brooklyn and Nicola. He told The Telegraph, "Yeah, I was asked to speak. There's a WhatsApp group with Brooklyn and Nicola. I thought, I'm not going to throw anyone under a bus, I just spoke from the heart. I wasn't there to slag off Victoria and David. I wasn't spilling the beans." Tony emotionally added, "I always like to see a happy ending, and I think that they will as a family all get back together. It was getting to the point where everyone forgot the reality was that some kid's hurting and a family's lost their son." Days after the release of the 6-page statement, Tony claimed that Mark Anthony was to blame, revealing the musician had called Victoria to the dance floor with her son and instructed him, "Place your hands on your mother's hips." Speaking on This Morning, Tony shared, "There was no slut dropping, there was no PVC catsuits, no Spice Girl action. The word inappropriate, why I said it was as well, it was the timing, this is what happened." Tony continued, "What happened was, basically, Mark Anthony was performing on stage, he then called Brooklyn onto stage. Brooklyn went onto the stage, and the next minute everyone's expecting Nicola to go up and do the first dance, and then Mark asked for the most beautiful woman in the room to come to the stage. And then he says, 'Victoria, come to the stage.' He revealed that Brooklyn looked devastated at the fact his first dance was with Victoria and not his wife, adding that Nicola left the room, crying her eyes out." The disc jockey, 60, is a friend of the family and famously DJ'd at Brooklyn's wedding to Nicola Peltz in 2022, where Brooklyn alleged that his mother Victoria had danced inappropriately. Tony went on, "Brooklyn is stuck there on stage, and they do this dance, and Mark Anthony says, 'Put your hands on your mother's hips,' and it was a Latin thing, and the whole situation was really awkward for everyone in the room. I've done an awful lot of Beckham parties in the past, and they are a very dancing, close-knit family and love to dance, right? So what we deem as inappropriate is not how Brooklyn feels. This is all about how Brooklyn feels. If he feels that it was inappropriate and awkward, it was inappropriate and awkward." What's sad is that this is the bit that everyone's taken from the statement and kind of whitewashed everything else that went on. Detailing Brooklyn's motives for going public with his statement, Tony continued, "It's taken a lot for someone to go to social media. When your life is lived out on social media, he wanted to change the narrative. For all of his life, he's been called a Nepo baby, and he should be grateful that he's got the family name. But that's what he was born into, you know. I think what we're all missing here is the fact that parents have lost their child and a son has lost his parents. When asked if he couldn't counsel him to go and live his life and not blow this up, Tony said, "The thing is, it's drip-fed. We live in a world where people make their own presumptions about everything, and no, there's nothing you can do about that. You can't, and the reason why I've come on this morning is because it's a safe space. I've been inundated with 'you're a liar,' 'you're this, you're that,' and I haven't even commented. My poor husband was in an argument and made a brief comment saying, 'You weren't there, I was, it's true,' which then led on to all those messages. It was ridiculous." On why he thought Brooklyn didn't approach his parents privately, Tony replied, "He's done all that. It got to the point for him where he can't take this anymore and wanted to step back from it, and that was his way of doing closure. I couldn't think of anything worse for his parents, and I can only talk as a dog dad, but I didn't talk to my own father for 30 years due to my own understanding of a situation that I made up in my own head. And it wasn't until I reconciled with my father that I realized that I had to look at my part in it. So of course, it's a really sad situation. Of course they will at some point, they are family. But the noise needs to die down, people need to step back from it. I didn't realize there were 2.5 million people at that wedding because everyone seems to think they were there. Everyone feels the need to comment on it. And I'm sure they will have a field day with this, but that's the world we live in. I have been silent for years and made every effort to keep these matters private. Unfortunately, my parents and their team have continued to go to the press, leaving me with no choice but to speak for myself and tell the truth about only some of the lies that have been printed. I do not want to reconcile with my family. I'm not being controlled, I'm standing up for myself for the first time in my life. For my entire life, my parents have controlled narratives in the press about our family. The performative social media posts, family events, and inauthentic relationships have been a fixture of the life I was born into. Recently, I have seen with my own eyes the lengths that they'll go through to place countless lies in the media, mostly at the expense of innocent people, to preserve their own facade. But I believe the truth always comes out. My parents have been trying endlessly to ruin my relationship since before my wedding, and it hasn't stopped. My mom canceled making Nicola's dress in the 11th hour despite how excited she was to wear her design, forcing her to urgently find a new dress. Weeks before our big day, my parents repeatedly pressured and attempted to bribe me into signing away the rights to my name, which would have affected me, my wife, and our future children. They were adamant on me signing before my wedding date because then the terms of the deal would be initiated. My holdout affected the payday, and they have never treated me the same since. During the wedding planning, my mom went so far as to call me evil because Nicola and I chose to include my nanny Sandra and Nicola's nanny at our table because they both didn't have their husbands. Both of our parents had their own tables equally adjacent to ours. The night before our wedding, members of my family told me that Nicola was not blood and not family. Since the moment I started standing up for myself with my family, I've received endless attacks from my parents, both privately and publicly, that were sent to the press on their orders. Even my brothers were sent to attack me on social media before they ultimately blocked me out of nowhere this last summer. My mom hijacked my first dance with my wife, which had been planned weeks in advance to a romantic love song. In front of our 500 wedding guests, Mark Anthony called me to the stage, wherein the schedule was planned to be my romantic dance with my wife, but instead my mom was waiting to dance with me instead. She danced very inappropriately on me in front of everyone. I've never felt more uncomfortable or humiliated in my entire life. We wanted to renew our vows so we could create new memories of our wedding day that bring us joy and happiness, not anxiety and embarrassment. My wife has been consistently disrespected by my family, no matter how hard we've tried to come together as one. My mom has repeatedly invited women from my past into our lives in ways that were clearly intended to make us both uncomfortable. Despite this, we still traveled to London for my dad's birthday and were rejected for a week as we waited in our hotel room trying to plan quality time with him. He refused all of our attempts, unless it was at his big birthday party with 100 guests and cameras at every corner. When he finally agreed to see me, it was under the condition that Nicola wasn't invited. Later, when my family traveled to LA, they refused to see me at all. My family values public promotion and endorsements above all else. Family love is decided by how much you post on social media, or how quickly you drop everything to show up and pose for a family photo op, even if it's at the expense of our professional obligations. We've gone out of our way for years to show up and support at every fashion show, every party, and every press activity to show our perfect family. But the one time my wife asked for my mom's support to save displaced dogs during the LA fires, my mom refused. The narrative that my wife controls me is completely backwards. I have been controlled by my parents for most of my life. I grew up with overwhelming anxiety. For the first time in my life, since stepping away from my family, that anxiety has disappeared. I wake up every morning grateful for the life I chose and have found peace and relief. My wife and I do not want a life shaped by image, press, or manipulation. All we want peace, privacy, and happiness for us and our future family.